Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandy. So back with another Cardfight Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, and let's get one started, shall we? This time we are discussing not the first release of the new collection sets, but the first one that actually had all of its cards released, Genesis Regalias. We got more Regalias. We didn't get a reverse Angelica like I wanted. We didn't get a Minerva like I wanted, but hey, we got something, so I'll take it. I don't think Regalias need another main grade 3 unless it was really a Minerva reverse. You can just add a little spice to it, but it's still fine. I'm not discriminating against it. I'm just saying kind of preferred something else. But the deck seems good, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? First up, we have our starter and aiming for the stars. Artemis, grade 0 boost, 10k shield, 6k base. And has the standard starter skill. When it's rolled upon, you draw a card, and then if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 1 or greater, you get a quick shield. So nothing special about it. It is just a regular starter. You get that draw, you get that quick shield, and to be fair with you, I would make this a regular starter, but we do not have one. So the closest thing I have to that is something that has I just forgot what it's called. Divine Gauge theming with it, which is the Artemis line. So might as well make Artemis the starter. So yeah. Then we have our triggers. We have 4 draw PG and Goddess of Self-Sacrifice, Kusinada. Grade 0 boost, 0 shield, 5k shield, draw trigger, 5k base, 0 shield. Draw trigger, continue ascendant on you. have 4 zones in your deck, and Autumn's put on guard circle. When placed, discard a card from your hand and choose one of your units that cannot be attended to battle. So, really nice draw ability. You can use it to get hand cards, which will be kind of helpful. The new Regalia makes me not want to run the 4 draw PGs, and I kind of want to run the 12 crit. But I'm going to run the 4 draw PGs is because what I've been doing. But, I can see the reason why you want to run the 12 crits in this deck. That's all I'm going to say. Anyways, the RPG helps get hand cards so you can call stuff that actually needs gauging down with the defensives too, because, you know, who doesn't want that free PG all around? Or not free PG, but like just PG and a draw trigger. So 4 of Kusinada, really helpful. We run 8 crits in Cyber Tiger and Mercury of Gravities. Like I said before, the new Regalia makes it really difficult to choose if you want that draw PG or a crit zone or not. So if you want to go the 12 crit way, go the 12 crit way, but I prefer the 8 crit 4 draw. And then we have the regular heal, of which a big pot's Laurier. If you don't know why I not running the heal guards here, go to any of my videos that from the previous clan collection, and you will probably get an answer of why I don't like heal guardians. My main thing is just this: they're detrimental to my playstyle. They don't work well for me. If you want to run heal guardians, go ahead. There's not a problem with them. I just don't like using them. If you want to run them, good on you. If you don't want to run them, join the club. That's all I can say. 4 of Laurier, she's a nice heal, and the 20k shield is just nice. Then we move on to our grade 1s. 3 copies of the card that would be a Regalia if I had a choice. Bowstring of Heaven and Earth, Artemis. Arguably enough, by art style, she is my favorite of the Artemis cards. Out of skill, she is my least favorite out of the Artemis cards. Grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base, has beautiful moon in the background. That is the only reason she's here. Auto rear, when it attacks or boosts something, you may put a card from your soul under it as a divine gauge. So, really nice. Guaranteed, regardless of who it's boosting or attacking into or with, you get a free gauge for this unit. And that's amazing. And it's a maze, so you don't have to do it if you don't want to, and it does it all for free, so amazing. And then on act rear, counterboss 1, discard one of its gauges, choose an opponent's rear guard saying calm as it, kill it. So that's really nice. Ways to get free gauge and ways to nuke rear guards. Downside is it has to cost a counterblast for it. Really wish it didn't cost a counterblast, but I can understand it. Back when this was made, I don't think Regalias were even thought of MV, or maybe if they were, but they definitely didn't think this far ahead to where counterblast might more or less be an issue. I'm not saying it is an issue, I'm just saying more or less. So, you know, Artemis, still a good grade 1. Get rid of rear guards, get to free gauge, no reason not to run it F3 of in this deck. Then we have 4 copies of Oblation Regalia Var, grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base. Auto rear, when it attacks or boosts, you may put a card from your soul face down as a divine gauge for this unit. So basically the same exact skill as this one. It is literally the same exact skill, just copy and pasted, but whatever. And then act rear guard, once per turn, discard one of its gauges, soul charge 3, and if you have a Vanguard Regalia card name, retire it, counter charge 1. Cool, so if you're on anything that is not a grade 1, because this and only one other grade 1 is not a Regalia, after that everything else in this deck is a Regalia outside of the triggers. So Var's really easy to get off. You get rid of one of your triggers, one of its gauges, you get Soul Charge 3, and if you don't know, your gauges typically come from Soul, so that's a really nice way to basically of saying you get rid of 1 gauge to technically get 2 more. Technically you get 3 more, but it's basically 2 more. And not to mention, you can kill itself to get a counter charge if you have another Regalia, and that helps with the counterblast issue that this deck tends to have every now and again. So Vararon is an amazing grade 1. I love it so much. The only downside is to it has no Vanguard skill, so if you ride this, it's essentially a vanilla turn, but hey, it's an amazing grade 1. It's allowed to have that, so 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Ordain Owl. Grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base. He's our last grade 1. Really love the ice theme of this one. Auto when it's rode upon, and you may call it to rear. Okay, simple skill, but guess what? That's good. You want to know why? This is our last grade 1, and it's our only ride target grade 1, so simple skill works. And auto rear at the end of the battle that it boosted. Sorry, at the end of the battle, this unit boosted a unit with Regalia in its card name. Shove it to soul, draw a card. So it just says unit with Regalia in its card name. So it can boost a rear guard, it can boost a vanguard. Fuck it, if Bushy made a way to do it, you could boost a damage trigger card. I don't know how they would logicalize that in Genesis, but of all things, but whatever. You would be able to shove to soul and get a draw card, as long as the unit boosted was a Regalia. So Ordain Owl, really nice skill, way to get soul for your Divine Engage's way to replace himself with a draw. There's no minus to them. Run it out of 4 of. Best grade 1 ride target. Best probably grade 1 in this deck just because of how it works with the deck. Tied with this because this has its own purpose. 4 of Ordain Owl. Amazing grade 1. Don't want anything about it. Then we move on to our grade 2s. We first off have our new grade 2, 4 copies of Regalia of Prayer Rurigissa. Yeah, grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. I want to say I love this art, by the way. Like, I love the 3 kind of shining. What are those called? I know what they are because I've seen them before, but I don't remember. Anyways, those 3 shining things in her background. I really like the little loop around her neck, and I love that glowing sword. I think it all looks amazing, and I think it's a glowing sword. I don't know why. Whenever I think of a glowing sword, I think of abilities that can call rear guards, and that's exactly what this does. So, I don't know. Maybe that has something to do because of what everything in Gold Paladin does, but whatever. Anyways, her skill is auto when it's placed on Vanguard. Karen Boss 1, look at top 5, choose up to 1 card from among them, call it to rear guard circle, and shuffle your deck. And if you called a card for Regalia in its card name, which unless you see 5 triggers, is almost guaranteed to happen. Once more, unless you see 5 triggers or just a copy of these 2 ended up in there. And then you choose one up to 1 of your rear guards, and put up to 1 card from your soul face down as a gauge for that unit. Okay, so on place, Karen Boss 1, specifically on Vanguard, Karen Boss 1, top 5, get a unit. And if it is a Regalia, you can choose to gauge something. You do not have to gauge you can choose to gauge any rear guard. It doesn't have to be the Regalia you called. It can be any rear guard that you want to gauge. You do not have to gauge it. So that's really nice. And then auto when it's placed on rear guard, choose up to 2 cards from your draws and Regalia in their card name, shove them to soul. So, way to get soul for skills, because if you don't know, when your rear guard with a Divine Gauge on it dies, the Divine Gauge goes to drop them with it. So, way to get gauges back in soul, so you can reuse them, and that does it for free. And the turn you ride it for grade 2, you get calls. In worst case scenario, if you're grade locked and you can't G-assist into a good grade 3 ride, you keep using its skill to get more rear guards. All around really nice, makes for a nice grade 2 aggro rush, and not to mention can send stuff to soul, and it's for the first half of its skill, the first half of its skill, doesn't require it to be a Regalia that you call. So all around, Rurigissa is amazing grade 2, I love it, 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Regalia of Fate Norn, grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto Vanner rare, once per turn, Crown Pass 1, draw a card and choose one of your rear guards, and you may put a card from your soul face down as a Divine Gauge for that unit. If you put a card, you may soul charge 2. So, basically, lose a soul, get a soul back, because you're replacing that soul with another soul charge, and then you're getting an additional soul. And not to mention the fact you get to draw before you do anything. So it's a guaranteed draw. Yes, you have to gauge something, but, you don't have to gauge something, you just have to pick a rear guard, but then if you do gauge it, you get soul charge too, so that's really nice. And auto rear, once per turn, at the end of the battle that it boosted a Regalia unit, it doesn't have to be a Vanguard, it can be a Vanguard, it can be a rear guard, fuck it, once more, Bushy made it an ability, they can do it in damage zone. Bushy, I hope you're listening to this, make a card in Angel Feather that allows you to boost from the damage zone. I want Bushy to do this. Now, it was supposed to be a joke, but now I'm actually being serious. Discard a card from your hand, and one of your units with Divine, and one of this unit's Divine Gauges, and if you do, stand the boosted unit, it gets plus 10k power, minus 1 drive for the turn. If you're wondering why they specified minus 1 drive, is because you can stand the Vanguard with this. So by getting rid of a gauge from this unit, and losing a hand card, restand Vanguard, Vanguard's at least at a 23, plus a drive. The opponent doesn't have to be at grade 3 for this. You do not have to be at grade 3 for this. So Norn on her own is the most dangerous unit in this deck. And it may be once per turn, but is not named once per turn, which means you can abuse the crap out of this if you call 3 of them to the back row. 4 of Norn, I want to hear nothing about it. Then we have 4 copies of Demon Exorcism Regalia Thrud. Granted, she is my least favorite Regalia, but I don't know if we have another Grade 2 Regalia, and I'm pretty sure we don't, or at least in V, so I have chosen to run her anyways. Grade 2 Intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Onto a rear, when placed, you may put a card from your soul face down as a Divine Gauge for this unit. Okay, I would say that sucks, because being an on play, so either you do it now or you don't do it ever, is kind of a worse thing to have for a Divine Gauger, but then when you remember every single one of the Grade 3s and every other card in this deck that can gain Divine Gauge, more or less, can gauge for them, or like engage for other cards, so not entirely a bad thing. Granted, very annoying, but if you're on any of the Grade 3s, all of them can Divine Gauge someone, so Thrud is not a problem with that. And auto rear at the end of the battle, the attacked or boosted, this unit can... Alright, I forgot, yeah, one of them can give boost. I forgot about that. Well, yeah, she has boost if you have a very certain Grade 3. Anyways, at the end of the battle, the attacked or boosted, if you have one or more gauges on it, move all of its gauges to another rear guard, shove this to soul and draw a card. Notice how the shove to soul part isn't a part of the cost. Which means if you get an ability that just says, the next ability you use it for free, the gauges don't move. It still goes to soul and you draw, and the gauge will just go to drop, which is why I question why you would use it with this, but whatever. Point is, moves gauges to other units, making them more deadly, like for example, move it to Norn so you can get a restander out of it, maybe move it to Var just for next turn, or maybe move it to like a unit that wants a plus gauge, or like the Grade 3's activate abilities based on who's gauge and who's not, so move it to someone who doesn't have a gauge so they can get pluses, and not to mention she refills your gauges by giving you a soul for it and a draw to replace her. It's just like Orde now, they're both really good. It is an amazing Grade 2, and I like it. As much as I hate how she looks, I like her skill 4 of. Now we move on to Grade 3s. This one was difficult. I didn't know if I want to make this like a smart Grade 3 lineup. That I'm using that word specifically, smart, because I'm not so sure if this Grade 3 lineup is smart or not. I know I like it, but I don't know if I wanted to make it smart or not, or if I wanted to make it based off the new Grade 3. So I did the latter, because the whole point of this was to show off the new Grade 3. So first up we have our, all of them are main Grade 3s, like all of them work on Vanguard. Anyways, our first Grade 3 is Cosmic Regalia CEO Yggdrasil. Grade 3 200 Persona at 13k Force Gift, 13k base, not Persona Ride. Continues Vanguard or Rear Guard. All your Rear Guards with Divine Gauge get boost. Cool, so wherever this is on the board, as long as it's on the board somewhere, but not in the damage zone or drop zone, someone gets a boost, as long as they have gauges. Cool, this thing's deadly, and that's why this says attacked or boost. For some reason, it never ticked in my mind that you can use this with this to get that boost ability off. I swear, every time this has been on Van, I could have called her to the back row, and I never thought about it until now. And then if it's on Vanguard, and it's your opponent's turn, those rear guards cannot be affected by anything of your opponent's cards. Basically, they can't murder them by their effects, they cannot bind them, they cannot bounce them, they cannot send them anywhere. The only way they can get rid of them is to swing into them. So guaranteed that everyone gets deadlier in terms of, attacking capabilities, because boost is a thing now, and it provides so much protection for your board. So she is definitely like how I see her is she's the defensive Grade 3 of the bunch. And act Vanguard or Rear Guard once per turn, counterblast 1, search after 1 for Regalia Fate Norn, call it to Rear Guard, shuffle your deck to 2 of your Rear Guards, put up to 1 card from each of them, put up to 1 card for each of them from your soul as a Divine Gauge for each of those units face down. So she can use that ability regardless of where she is on the board, and still get that to gauge. So that's amazing. So get you the restander, get you 2 gauge, can give everyone boost, and if she's on Van, she protects everyone with the gauge. All around CEO Yggdrasil is an amazing Grade 3, really good 3 of. Don't sleep on her if she ends up in your hand. Like all of these Grade 3s, don't sleep on them if they end up in your hand, because they will help you in so many different ways. Like that's one of the main things of the Regalias. They all have slightly different skills, and they all add for versatility in them, so 3 copies. Then we have 3 copies of Regalia of Wisdom Angelica, my favorite one in terms of arts. Grade 3 200 Persona Force Gift, again, not Persona Ride, 13k base, continuous Vanguard, all your rear guards with Divine Gauges cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, and they get +5. Okay. So here's my thing. Difference between these two is this one gives boost, this one gives them more power, and it gives them during both players' turns. Difference is this one makes it so they can't be touched by anything, as in skills that say all all don't work on them. This one just means that they can't be targeted singly, which means if you were to Chronos command them to bottom, they can't really stop you. That's how I remember this, because in Zero I just spammed Chronos command against anyone who ever made a board against me, and great Scott, I felt bad for anyone who tried to beat me, because their entire board would just, fuck you, even the people with resist. Guess what? Resist doesn't fucking target all skills. So, yeah, Angelica's amazing. And then Auto Van, when it attacks, you have to 2 of your rear guards, gauge 1 of them for each. So, no counter blast cost, no soul blast cost, no discard cost, just on swing, gauge 2. You do not have to gauge 2, it's up to 2, so you can choose to gauge 1, you can choose to gauge 2, you can choose to gain none. All around, it's an amazing skill. And then she has a third skill, which is Auto Van. At the end of your opponent's turn, discard 5 gauges to heal a card. So here's my thing. This entire deck focuses on gaining gauges and discarding them for their own effects. So discarding 5, that has to be for a worthwhile skill. Healing 1 is definitely a worthwhile skill. Now here's my thing. I'm not exactly sure if that's once per turn or not. If it's not once per turn, then you can heal as many 5s as you have. But if it is once per turn, Bushy had a logic when making this. I'm not so sure. Granted, I don't think you would spend more than 5 gauges trying to heal your cards. But, you know, if you wanted to heal 10 and it's not a once per turn, go ahead. I mean, not heal 10, discard 10 and heal 2, so be it. But, like, 3 copies of Angelica. Amazing Grade 3. Gets power, has granted less protection than Yggdrasil, but adds for more of the aggressive aspect on them. Gets you more free gauges, and not to mention, worst case scenario, if you're in that losing situation, discard 5 gauges, get a free heal. Angelica's amazing, 3 of. Then we have our new Grade 3 and 4 copies of Regalia of Divination Frigg, our last card on the deck and our last unit. Main Grade 3, Twin Drive, Force Gift. I almost had it again with the Persona Ride. 13k base. I really love her staff here. It looks cool. It kind of reminds me of Gear Chronicle for whatever reason. Actually, everything about her reminds me of Gear Chronicle. Continues Vanguard. All your rear guards with Divine Gauge cannot leave the field cannot leave rear guard circles by your opponent's card effects, and they get +5. So she took both of their effects. Well, here's my thing. She added protection against everything, so like stuff like Cradle and like not just stuff that removes them from board, but like stuff that targets like Cradle, Lock, things that lower power, etc. Yeah, this is what she touched. She just made it so that they can't be touched unless they do all abilities. This one did kind of a little bit of both. Now they can be touched by lock and minus powers, but you can't kick them off of the board via sending to bottom, sending back to hand, killing, binding, etc. skills. And they still get the +5 from Angelica. So she has both, kind of. So that's really nice. And then Act Vanguard, once per turn, counterblast 1, look at top 5, choose up to 1 card from among them, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. If you call it a Regalia, choose up to 2 of your rearguards, gain a gauge for each of them. So, that's cool. It is just like this Grade 2. It does not have to be a Regalia for the first half of the effect to go off. If you want to get the full effect, yes, it has to be a Regalia, but it's really cool. They can just counterblast 1, look at top 5, just to call 1. It can be an Ordained Owl, or it can be Artemis if that's what your options are, or maybe a trigger if you really have to just call a unit. But that's really nice that she can just get a free top 5 search and then call something, and if it is a Regalia, then you get those 2 gauges, so that's amazing. And then Auto Van at the beginning of your turn, if your opponent's damage on his 4 or less cards, drop 5 gauges, bop them a damage. So, we went from heal to damage. I think when she first came out, people would always compare it to the Takikaze one, because obviously Divine Gauge and Equip Gauges were almost the same thing. And Takikaze, their first Grade 3, I believe it was called Ravenous Gigarex, discard 5 Equip Gauges, deal 1 damage, seem very similar to discard 5 gauges and heal 1 damage. Now Regalias have just gotten a discard 5 deal a damage. My thing is this, I wish it wasn't just specifically when they're at 4 or less, because I feel like Regalias might have wanted that, just if they're at 5, do it, but whatever, that's still an amazing skill. I think 5 may have been broken, but I just wanted to see it. That's still an amazing skill, it's just as easy to get 5 gauge for Angelica, deal of damage, all around, really nice. I think we have the defensive one, we have the more aggressive, like the most aggressive one, and I guess the one that's more the midway point between the two. I prefer Frigg just because she's the more balanced. If we're going in terms of skills, Frigg. If we're going in terms of arts, Angelica. If we're going in terms of support, Yggdrasil. But the reason why I put Yggdrasil down to 3 is because it's the only one out of all of them that has a rear guard skill, and both of its skills are rear guard skills. So that's why she's at 3 of. Because if you have her on the board, her abilities go off still. So yeah, I run a Frigg at 4 of. If you want to run her at 3 of because maybe you think Angelica or Yggdrasil are better, go ahead. But I still think this lineup works out pretty well because you get to see all of the great 3s that work. All of them still get the right consistency with the deck, and they can all do a different thing that will still help the deck win. And then we have our gifts. We have 5 Force 1s, 5 Force 2s. Force 1 and Force 2 are kind of similar in the sense of when they're required, they either go on Van or Rearguard. The difference is, yes, you can put them on the same circle at multiple times, but Force 1 stacks, Force 2 doesn't. Force 1, the unit on that circle gets plus 10 during your turn, and Force 2, the original critical, becomes 2. So for Force 1, if you have 5 Force 1s on the same circle, it's plus 50, 7, plus 70, 10, 100, 1,000. So yeah, etc. You get the point. Force 1 makes numbers. Force 2, your criticals just become 2. Now if it said your criticals get plus 1, then it could stack. Unless it said the original critical gets plus 1, then it wouldn't stack. But yeah, Force 2 all around, in my opinion, is just the better thing to go with, especially if you're on Angelica, just because she can give you more numbers. Like, that's the thing with this deck. Regardless of who you're on, I think Force 2 just works better because you don't get amazing numbers. You do not get amazing numbers, but you do get good numbers, and the Force 2 always helps for the extra little bit of damage deal. But now that we have Frigg, I kind of see myself changing around sometimes to use Force 1 more often, just because we have the ability to do a free damage, and getting those numbers might be more important. So if we're going by my old playstyle, Force 2 is the way to go. If we're going by my newer playstyle, just go along with the game feels. If Frigg ends up in your hand, you might want to go Force 1 if you plan on riding Frigg, but if you see like Angelica or Yggdrasil, just go Force 2. Like, that's my opinion on it. But either way, the gifts work for the deck. And then we have our Quick Show, which is when one of your units is attacked, it gets plus 5k for the battle. Yeah, you only get this with the starter, and you typically use it as discard fodder for the PG, aka the only thing in this deck that uses discard. So if you don't end up discarding it for the PG, well, guess what? You got a free 5k show for the rest of the game, so that's really nice. And aside for the deck, I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, I like this deck. I think Regalias are fun. I didn't want another Regalia line that wasn't going to give me Minerva or a Regalia reverse, but I'm satisfied that we got Frigg because she has a little gold paladin feel to her. She adds a third type of consistency to the deck and an interesting style of how to play it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to check us out.